What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to EDC Hour with Dirk and Alex. How is everybody doing? How you doing, Alex?
I'm hanging in there, man. Having a pretty busy day today. Glad to have made it.
Well, that's good. How's the dog doing?
The dog is good. The dog healed up pretty well, and she's eating and drinking, so everything's good there.
Perfect. Well, we missed you last time with Jim, but glad you could jump on for a few minutes there towards the end. That was awesome. Glad you could do that. And I'm glad that the dog is doing well.
Yep, absolutely.
So since the Peacemaker broke the internet last time, I just want to bring it out and just to make sure that we don't break anything today. Here is the Peacemaker. This is a Phil Harvey Peacemaker. 2+ pounds of incredible awesomeness that I don't know will all fit in the screen at one time. But there you go. I've done full videos on it a couple of times, and it's all over Instagram and whatnot. So you can go check it out there. Once the video is all done, I'll put a link down to it if you guys want. But yeah, there you go. We didn't break the internet this time, so that's a good start to today.
Agreed. That is a great start.
So today we want to talk about collecting and what does that mean to each of us and how we kind of started collecting and how do we collect. And I think Alex is a bit more scientific in his collecting than I am. I'm kind of all over the place.
I don't know if it's science. I think it's just a matter of, sometimes I feel like I'm a dog, like I see a new shiny thing and I run after that, and then I run after that, and I'm all over the place. And then sometimes there's like a reasoning for my madness of why I do it the way I do. So I thought it'd be fun today to discuss the who, what's, and where's and when's of how we collect our knives and why we buy the products that we buy, where we buy them, how we buy them, and those sorts of things.
No, I think that's a great topic. When Alex and I were talking earlier in the week, just so you guys know, like we talk all the time. Alex and I talk, probably daily and a couple times throughout the day. Usually, work gets in the way sometimes and whatnot, but that's cool. But yeah, we always are kind of talking about what is our next topic going to be. So when we started talking about this, 4 or 5 days ago, Alex brought up the whole collecting thing. I thought that was awesome because Alex and I have very different, I think, ways of collecting. And I don't think there's any right way or wrong way. The only wrong way I could say, and this kind of spans knives, watches, coins, stamp, like any collecting hobby. I think a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today applies to any kind of collection. And the only negative thing I would say is if you are collecting things outside of your means. Like if you can't afford something and you're putting on credit or you're, borrowing money to buy a something, well, that might not be the best route. If you're going to put on your credit card and pay it off next month, like I get that. Obviously, I put a ton of stuff on my credit card and pay it off, right? But don't go into debt collecting to quote unquote keep up with the Joneses. That's kind of my only negative, wrong way of collecting.
That is a very good point. And I'd like to add to that because not only like you don't want to keep up with the Joneses, but technically there might be the Smiths that are next door that are in your realm and might be collecting exactly the same things that you are, or you don't have to go to the Joneses and see what they're doing. There's other people you can intermingle and talk about the exciting new stuff that you've got. There's groups out there. There's, Instagram. And I think for the most part, most collectors have known to not be so judgmental on what level of how many you have or how expensive they are, because in all essence, the collecting is a good way for all of us to connect regardless. And share with each other, because a lot of things that I've learned about knives, I've learned from friends, and some I've learned about asking knife makers, and then some I've asked, um, just like by reading other forums and stuff and reviews and YouTube and those sorts of things. So, like it's a lot like Dirk said. There are some brands that are very inexpensive, and you could collect the whole set and keep going forever and have a good time doing it. So,
Right. I just want to highlight a couple of comments really quick. Is Thai Addiction is a good friend of mine too. Um, Collecting women costs way too much. You're not wrong. Like, absolutely correct. And another point that Alex said is, yeah, we don't need to keep up with people. There is no wrong way, or there is no price range. I collect stuff anywhere from $10 to $10,000, give or take. And that may not be for everybody, but there's a ton of people that collect stuff in that sub 100. And there is awesome stuff in the sub 100 category. So there's no, I just don't think people need to get too caught up with Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and see what people are reviewing and talking about. Because you got to remember, they may not own all of that stuff.
yes, that's a very valid point.
Don't get hung up on this reviewer has all of these expensive knives. Well, they may not be his or hers. A lot of the stuff I review, I get loaned from Alex mostly. So all the expensive stuff I review, they belong to Alex. So don't try to keep up with me. Try to keep up with Alex.
The thing is see, I this is something that's a kind of a touchy subject, I think, in some realms, because of a lot of YouTube channels. Their channels are based on what they get sent in, and they part of the Apex pass around groups, and they do a lot of that stuff, right? And it's a different kind of reviewing when you've had the knife for a week or so, and then when you've owned it for a long period of time. But at the same time, when you've had knives for a certain amount of years, it doesn't take you very long to kind of figure out what you're holding in your hand when you get them. Maybe a couple of days is all you really need to make your kind of almost finalized opinion about whether you're going to like it, whether it's too small, whether it's comfortable. It doesn't really take like long-term carry. I guess it just all depends on how scientific you want to get about it, right? Like the guys who do the steel talk, they're going to go out and like buy like 10 pounds of cardboard, and they're just going to rip through that stuff, in like a long-term review and whatnot. And that is the thing that people like to do. It just all depends on what your flavor is. But for me, like, I think we should start on let's start on the who's, right? Let's start on in order. Who are the people you like to kind of buy from and collect, and kind of places you like to look at for inspiration of your exploit of your bank account?
Yeah, so for me, a lot of the places that I look at, or people, I have certain makers that I look for and I look at. Todd Begg Knives here in California, the Fisher family, Sharknivco. So those are like some of the top makers that I like to look at and follow. As far as, kind of what retailers and stuff, I'm just scrolling through Instagram. Arizona Custom Knives. I'm a lot into the custom knives and stuff, not so much into the budgets. For me personally, I have a bunch of them, but I don't really carry and use the budget stuff that often. I'm more, kind of evolved from the budget stuff personally to carry most of the time. So what about you? Who are you always looking at? You are big into the South African front.
I am. I like a lot of the South African knife makers, just because I think it's pretty obvious with the pricing, the quality, the customer service, all that stuff. If you've ever actually bought South African knives, you usually get a pretty good bang for the buck, and you get something that's usually, they have their own like aesthetic and style, uh,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really a bit of like the customer service combined with like the product you get. Like one of my favorite knife makers is Jason Guthrie, and the reason why is because I love the Scout. I've been so, I don't know, it's just been so kind of an effortless piece to kind of carry around, throw in your pocket, use it if you really wanted to. Although that one I don't use much because I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to scratch the etch on the Damascus. But, on light stuff, paper, I've actually popped a few zip ties with that thing once or twice.
Uh-oh.
But, it's okay because it's like I tell people, like, don't be afraid to use an expensive piece because there's a chance you could send it to Jason and fix it. If you mess it up, just as well as I do that is a thing.
It is. I mean, so like custom knives and that Scout, I just gotta say, I recently sent it back to Alex. He loaned it to me for a couple of weeks, did a video on it, and carried it with me when I went to dinner. I had a fancy dinner out at the place here in Napa, and I took the Scout with me in my suit. It carried great, fantastic knife. Um, but yeah, if you damage a custom knife, it's happened to me. Um, you send it back to the maker, and they happily fixed it for me for free. Now that's not normal, maybe, but they repaired the tip of the blade for me and shipped it back to me all for free. And it took a little while, for sure. Several months it was gone, and I was a little worried because it's an expensive knife. But you can use your custom knives, and if something happens, send it in, and talk to them, and they can fix it. Much like a watch. Wear your watches. If you get a scratch on your custom, your luxury watch, get over it, move on, and just wear it.
So that is something I factor in when I shop for knives too. Um, the the least amount of use I could put that knife through, the least amount of enjoyment like it gives me, knowing that if something happens to it, that's it, right? Like my 777, the triple
Right.
seven Damascus. If something happens to that, pretty much screwed. But like the Scout, it's no big deal. Like if something happens to it, I just send it to Jason or whatever. I mean, you got to send it to Norway, and it's not cheap, and there's going
Well,
to be
yeah,
time involved. But so it's not
there's a
easy, but
cost
it
to the job.
is. It's not. It's something that's easily fixable.
And there are some pieces that I collect that I know I'm not going to carry very often, like the Peacemaker that I showed a
Right.
minute ago.
Right.
It does fit in my pocket. Got to make sure I got my like heavy duty belt on, but it does fit in the pocket. I would never carry it. Like it's not something you carry. Although Valentino, he used to carry his in his backpack every day.
Yeah, but
So,
that being
but
said, everybody should know that Valentino he's a giant, and so is Dirk. So
oh, he's bigger than me. I'm 6 foot, 6'1", maybe. Valentino's bigger, but so he can pull something like that off. But like some of the things, like the Frank Fisher battle that I have, I don't carry it often. I do carry it, not gonna lie, but I don't carry it every day.
right.
Here's a quick comment, from the casual cutter. Majority of his customs, if I wouldn't carry
What's
it
up,
because I'm
Tom?
afraid to scratch it, I'd rather reinvest in something I'll enjoy regularly. And that's a great point, and we're going to kind of touch on that as part of the collecting. Do do Alex and I collect stuff only that we're going to carry, or are we collecting stuff because we like it and it sits in the shelf or in the safe or in the drawer? I'll
Or
be
the
honest,
Xbox.
I have stuff like the Peacemaker that doesn't get carried. The Frank Fisher Battle doesn't get carried often, but it does get carried. So yeah, I have several things that just don't get carried because most of the Phil Harveys, they're all ginormous. So I don't really carry them.
Yeah, I have a few like that too, like the Kurt American with the W2 Hamon and the Westinghouse. I carry that. You'll see me like maybe like once every couple months taking a picture with it or whatever. But that one I don't intend on pulling that out if I need to beat on something. So it doesn't come out on a day where like I'm gonna really want to use a knife. Same thing with like I have a full dress JD Van Deventer and like full Timascus and Westinghouse micarta, and that knife is going to be the same scenario. Like I can't see myself with like a tight herringbone Damascus really like cutting anything with it, because now it's going to have to go down to Cape Town and get re-etched. And so like for example today, here's what I carried today. I had this ZT 0470, and this one's been modified by my buddy Sean Campbell.
Okay.
And it's a perfect knife. It's not an expensive knife. It's a regular production ZT that I pimped out, or Sean pimped out. Gave it to him, and he just made it a little bit more different. But it's got it's got a very, very toothy edge, so super sharp, and it's kind of nice, and if I beat this up or scratch it, I go drive down to Sean's house, drop it off, and it's fixed.
Right.
Yeah, I like that kind of stuff.
I think about what am I doing today to determine what I might carry. Right. I mean, if I'm going out to work on vehicles and stuff like that, I'm not going to carry a full dress something, But if I'm going to go work in the yard, I'll carry something different than if I'm going to go to the movies or out to dinner or something like that. So I think, for me, I think about what I'm going to do and where I'm going to be. If you're going to be around a bunch of people, you might carry something differently than if you're going to be with a group of friends.
So this brings me to another question. Have you ever, I know you have, I know we all have, gotten caught where somebody needs a knife to be used and you have too fancy of a knife and you get caught? Like they're like, hey Alex, you have a knife, pull it out, and then you pull out like some Damascus thing or whatever, and you're like, I'm not cutting that box with that, like I'm not doing that.
That has things like that have happened, and I end up just using my knife that I pull out, my fancy Damascus knife. It gets used to do whatever needs to be done.
I only say that because like you could see like that whole little row right there is all a bunch of Kershaws, and then there's a stack of GECs there, and then there's like 2 rows of Spydercos there. Like there's plenty of stuff for me to use. So for me, like to not want to take one of the expensive ones to beat on is okay. That's how I feel. I got plenty of other ones.
So do you carry more than one knife?
No.
So I carry 2, but it's 1.5 really. Okay, so I have my main folding knife, whatever it is. Like today it was the Shark Nivco Ryu. Okay.
Nice.
So I had this in my pocket. I also had a small Victorinox. Don't even know the name. I've had it for 10 or 12 years, and that always just drops into the bottom of my pocket. So a lot of times in a situation where somebody asks to use a knife, if I've got something too fancy, or maybe it's a knife I don't necessarily trust them. Maybe it's not super fancy, but it's worth a lot, and I don't know them well, or like we're in an area where they could easily drop it or damage it. I may just pull out my Victorinox, because really an inch-long blade is all we really need for most things.
That's what she said.
So let's hit a couple of comments really quick. Mattisfaction. I don't want to own knives I won't carry, but I own 2 I don't carry. The rest, though, I rotate just for fun. I don't hardly use my knives, tape and cardboard. And that's a great thing. I mean, there's a lot of people in that category that don't want to own anything that they're not going to carry. and that's totally fine.
I'm getting more towards that as the years go by, and as more and more as I collect, I'm starting to be more. I'm not gonna, hold on to this. So, off it goes. And then,
Mm-hmm.
speaking of which, I am having a sale, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm selling pretty much anything in the knife box, minus there's an exclusive list of knives that are not for sale, but and you can go through my IG, check all the pictures, and see if there's something you like, and hit me up. There's already been about 5 pieces that moved, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things. I don't know, man. Like when it comes to the who's of collecting, it's going to be reaching out to custom knife makers. It's going to be I like Knife Center.
Knife
Um,
Center's good.
although although I will only buy Knife Center if it's going to be production to mid-tech stuff. Custom knives, they have a huge markup, huge.
Mm.
Like an $1,800 piece at like Recon One, for example, would be like 23 or 2,500 there.
Oh
Like
boy.
big markup on certain customs.
Yeah. So
Um,
go ahead.
but that being said, they do carry like some very unique pieces. Like they do, somebody, whoever there is shopping around on their custom line, you'll see like some. I've actually seen JD knives. I've seen tons of South African stuff, Demcos, special edition stuff all the time. So Knife Center is a good place. Blade HQ, I used to love like 8 or 9 years ago. I don't like them as much anymore, but I still shop and look around there. They have some cool exclusives. But
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, I think I've been DLT Trading's another one that I like to go to, GP Knives, and the rest is going to be strictly reaching out to custom knife makers and sending them some micarta or some scale material or something. And and I am doing that currently as we speak.
Yeah, so that's another thing too we'll talk about. So as we move from, kind of who's and where's and what, how are you collecting? So I think Alex and I are a little different in our custom knife collecting. Alex likes to buy a lot of material. I've been to knife shows with Alex, and the booths that I typically walked past, I stop at because I'm with Alex, and it's the guys that are just selling billets of steel or billet, I don't know what they call it, billets or blanks of carbon fiber or G10, or they're just selling raw materials.
Yeah.
I always just walked past those because, well, I don't build knives, I don't need to look at them. Well, now I kind of look because Alex looks and he picks up a piece of steel, and because he loves the look of it, it's beautiful and whatnot. And I agree, yeah, that's beautiful. And I go, what are you gonna make with it? He go, or have made? He goes, I don't know. I'll find something at some point. So you've bought stuff and just had it there in your knife box or in the garage or whatever for years, right?
Yeah, I still have a few back here right now. I have some Fordite I've bought a couple years back that is waiting for a project at some point. That glow in the dark stuff that I have from like I used on my dagger.
Uh-huh.
I have a whole big chunk of it left. I got tons of fat carbon. I don't know, like I just and I just collect material because at some point, um, I don't know. I just like I could see something's gonna be nice out of this particular material, and I kind of imagine like if you cut into it and you could see the layers, like what you're gonna get, and if you really look at it, it's not hard to tell what you might get to see when you start shedding some layers of steel or carbon fiber or whatnot. And lately, the carbon fiber market has been going really nuts. There's been some really crazy, wild CFs. I don't know if you've been seeing that, but like some of
Mm-hmm.
those Russian ones I sent you, like Ultra
Yeah.
Tech. I mean, but that's like it's the only way they'll sell you a heat of it was like $660 shipped to the US, and it was like enough to make like 2 or 3 knives. It's a bit much, so it's
Right.
like good to like maybe split it with a buddy. Like if two of you are going to use this crazy CF and you say, well, let's, but other than that, like that's too much for me. As much as I love the material, it was just too much, right? So I ended up, ordering something else from that side of the world, which will hopefully make it to its destination.
Right. So now a question about that. So like I have never bought raw material. I have a hard enough time picking out custom materials, right? I have a custom build going right now with a
Right.
maker that Alex is aware of. And the maker was like, what do you want it to look like? And I'm like, I don't know, make something cool. I told him, make something you wouldn't necessarily build. I want to do something over the top and crazy. And then he starts asking, he sent me like a form of this and that and the other. I'm like, I don't know what's going to look right. I said, some Timascus over here, some carbon fiber over there. And then he came back with a rendering and I loved it. I'm not good at picking out the materials and the stuff. So you can see that better than I can. But when you are talking to a maker and you've got a pile of material in the back there, are they usually open to that? Are they hesitant about using your material? Do they charge you more? Like, how does that work? I think that might be interesting to people that aren't doing that.
So I did my first like pick your own material build thing. I started that in 2017. It was the first one I ever did. It was that Chupacabra with the superconductor and stuff.
Oh, yes.
So that was my first, like, Alex decided this is what he wants kind of build. And sending some like stuff out to makers over the years, you get like you get a mixture of things. Like, for example, there's things you have to keep in mind when you try to just send your stuff to a maker. So I'm not going to say who, but I just came up on a knife that is about to be made for me. And I can't say who because this knife company does not use fancy carbon fiber. So I don't know if they want to even that to be said right now, but
that's fine.
I've been asking them for literally probably 3 years to do this. And finally I got the email that said, email me, let's talk about it. So I'm like super excited, right? So like, here's some of the things that I've learned over the years. First of all, the size of the material and like the thickness has one big thing to do with everything, because when you buy your own material, it's not always going to be the right thickness for the project that they're doing, or it might be too thick and then they have to spend more time shaving it down to make it fit their jig, right?
That's a great point.
So that is one of the reasons why this particular maker that I'm talking about didn't do that. One of the ways that I got in was that was a point that I said up front when I made the request. By the way, if you want it in a certain thickness and a certain whatever to fit your jig, I will make sure I will order exactly what fits your machine. And then I'll send it to you just as is. So it's as easy as possible for you. That's the key. You want to make it easy on the knife maker to do these things, because if they feel uncomfortable, their fear is going to be they're going to destroy your material, or you're going to be an asshole and say, hey, you broke my stuff. Now, like, I don't have a knife. You need to buy me more carbon fiber or whatever it may be, right?
Right.
It can get weird. And then people are going to be like, well, I would never do that. But somebody will.
Absolutely.
Somebody has.
That way all the time. Yep.
And somebody has. So when knife makers are dicks, guys, cut them a break. It's kind of like the dealership, like my job's of being a service advisor. So when your car comes in for service, you come and see me and I'm the happy face and I try to sell you whatever you need and then write it down and type it up. And then I hand the ticket over the tech, and the tech's this grumpy guy and his pants are hanging down, his butt cracks hanging, and he didn't shower yet this morning, hasn't had his coffee, and he doesn't want to talk to you or see you. Like
Right.
he just wants to go sit in his stall and go to work. So like there's, you know, like sometimes there's a good, like there's a difference. So the knife maker is the mechanic, is what I'm telling you guys. Like you're
Right.
gonna run into like those grumpy dudes that just like don't know how to deal with people, but they love their craft and they're very good at it. And that can be a thing. So when you're trying to get a knife maker to do what you want him to, or to use what you want him to, a lot of the times, make it convenient for, you know, ask him those questions. Do you have a jig?
Yep.
How thick do you want it? Does it fit? B, this one, you know, Ed Kim, right? The materials sometimes people are allergic to.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that is a thing. And that was not just Ed. I've heard that from other people that they're like, I don't work with micarta for whatever reason, right? Like the dust or whatever. And so when I approach a knife maker, I usually already have an idea of exactly what the knife is going to be, what I want to do, and everything, colors, all that. But when I approach him, I'll start with a question. I'll be like, what materials do you not work with, you know, up front? Because I want to know that answer before I ask him to send him stuff, right?
Right.
So as you can see, like this is how I talk to custom knife makers, is the easier I can make it on them, the more likely they're going to play ball with your request and what you want to do. Another perfect example was the Sharp Eye Design dagger that I have with that really weird, like Raffir Noble that glows in the dark, right? Like Brian was like, I don't know about that, man. And I said, I'll tell you what, I know you work with fat carbon, so I'm going to send you a slab of fat carbon, and I'm going to send you this glow in the dark stuff. I want the glow in the dark stuff. But if you feel uncomfortable when you get it, or you decide that, you know, like it didn't work out, you broke it or whatever, you have a backup material. Here you go, make it out of that. So that was how I did it with Brian. And then Brian didn't even tell me what he used until the knife was already made and finished. And he said, do you want to know what it is? And I said, absolutely. You better send me a picture. And I was expecting the fat carbon, to tell you the truth, because I figured he was going to play it safe, right?
Right.
Like, hey, I didn't use the glow in the dark, but look, I gave you a 3D milled on your carbon fiber that looks like a weave or whatever. Like he does all kinds of cool stuff, right?
Right.
So that's kind of what I expected, was the fat carbon on there, but he surprised me. He's like, guess what? It is actually great to work with. So I think
the moral of the story when you're talking to custom makers is attitude.
Yes.
Is be nice to them. If they say, I don't work with material X, whether it's carbon fiber, micarta, M390, Damascus, like whatever it is, just respect that. And then, you know,
wait, stop. So I kind of disagree at some respect. I gotta put a note, just a pause in between, then you can finish, because sometimes they'll tell you they're not going to use something, and oh no, I don't do that. Like asking for something like a bolster lock or something weird that they don't do. I tell you, don't not ask. Actually, ask them if they'll do it. Like Kurt American never did a bolster lock, right? And I asked him to do it, and he's like, okay, let's try it. So you never know. So I
agree with that. I think it's kind of, again, goes back to your attitude. And if you're asking them and whatnot and having a discussion with them about, hey, I know you don't normally do this, or you said, hey, I don't normally work with this. Would you be interested in maybe trying something like you did with Kurt and your bolster lock?
Right.
So I think it's, you know, it kind of goes back to attitude. It's like when you get pulled over by the cops. It's not a guarantee you're getting a ticket. No. But as soon as you open your mouth, you could easily talk yourself into getting a ticket.
Most definitely.
I think this is a perfect comment too from Casual Cutter. The makers are just people. Same with like
makers are a lot more like the grumpy mechanic that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, but you just got to talk to them. Like, same like you and me. We're just people that happen to have a YouTube thing. We're nothing fancy. We're just two guys. I mean, I have no delusions of grandeur, but and yep, you kind of hit it as I.
That means we both like the comment. See,
we both like the comment. I mean, and yeah, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So, if you don't ask the maker to do something, you're not going to get it. And even Nav Sergeant here says, in my experience,
I was just clicking on that too.
Yeah, go ahead and click on it then. In his experience, Kurt American is pretty much down to try anything. And Kurt's a great guy. I met him at the last show that Alex and I went to together, California Custom Knife Show of 2021.
And 2020. We saw him there too.
We saw him in 2020 also, but I didn't get to talk to him and meet him. I mean, I might have said hi, but at the last show in 2021, I actually spent a lot of time talking with him. He had just gotten a tattoo a couple of days prior. I had just gotten some work done. So he and I kind of talked about that for quite a while, actually, which was pretty fun. So yeah, ask the makers to step outside of their normal box. That's what's happening with the custom that I'm having built right now. It's a little bit of materials that he doesn't normally work with. So it's kind of costing a pretty penny, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to be awesome. And he threw some stuff in there when he sent the renderings that I wasn't expecting, and I was super excited about. So it's a VC Edge is the maker down in Southern California.
I was like not going to say anything because you're.
I know. I kind of was going back and forth if I should talk about it or not. But yeah, he is working on a standard interface, which is his model of knife is called the Interface. I've done a video on one. So he's doing a standard one and a custom over the top one for me.
Which I've seen kind of renders or read some specs on.
Yeah,
holy crap, guys.
You've seen what I've seen, and I'm pretty stoked. It's going to be a while, but yeah. And we're going to have him on the podcast too as a guest here in a little bit. We haven't worked out dates and stuff yet, but we definitely will get him on as a guest. So that'll be.
I think I'm going to be very keen on getting one myself.
Dude, I got to say, if you guys have not seen the VC Edge interface, you need to check them out. They are amazing. Super light. He's got it. It's going to be even lighter than it was when I reviewed it. I think it was 2 ounces when I reviewed it, and he's got it down under 2 ounces now for like almost a 4-inch blade.
That's nuts, man.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Oh, wait. Let's not forget to mention something very special came home today, didn't it, Dirk?
Yes, I did get it came yesterday in the mail. Today's Sunday. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, as we talk about collecting, and we'll get back onto the collecting topic, I tend to collect makers. So I kind of started out with Benchmade and, or brands / makers. I think a lot of us started with Spyderco and Benchmade, right?
Right.
Then we evolved, and I went pretty hardcore into some Medford knives and ended up with more than I'm going to admit to. Okay. And then I sold a bunch of them. I still have a couple. Just so
but to make it clear, Dirk became like one of the Medford collectors with these very special, unique ones. So Dirk didn't just have a couple Praetorians
Well, I had a bunch of Praetorians, but a couple were Damascus and, just kind of completely kind of one-off.
One-offs, yeah.
And then I kind of got into beg knives, had a bunch of bodegas and Bugattis and glimpses and field marshals and things like that. My latest kick right now is
VC Edge is here.
Whoa! Go ahead and highlight that one. But
we were just talking about you.
My latest kick is the Hellraiser from Red Horse Knife Works. And there's only a couple of flipper Hellraisers made. And there's only a couple with Damasteel blades and or Damascus blades. So this is one that I got in to help a buddy sell. And I sold it because I couldn't buy it. I bought 2 of the 4 customs that he had lent me to sell. So I bought 2 of the 4 myself. And this one got sold, and my buddy sold it back to me. So it just came back in the mail today. So Chris, thank you very much for kind of renting that from me for a little bit. I appreciate it. Now I just need to talk Cliff into selling me back the other one. So VC Edge, very cool, Jason. Thanks for jumping in. Yeah. Okay. So it was 1.7 and now it's 1.6 ounces. I was a little off. I didn't remember exactly, but yeah, guys, I'm telling you, go check out my video on the VC Edge, or just go look up on YouTube, watch somebody else's video. I don't care. I prefer you watch mine, but hey, whatever. They're awesome. It truly blew my mind. And the one that he's working on now is going to blow my mind even more. So I'm super excited. But thanks for jumping in, Jason. I totally appreciate that.
Yes, that's pretty awesome. We definitely hope to have you on. And I'm interested too, by the way, at some point. No, I need to stop.
They're not cheap, but they're not overpriced. You know what I mean? So the standard ones are reasonable in that $8-ish $100 range. The over the top one is a bit more. We won't talk about that, but I don't think it's overpriced, if that makes sense.
No, especially when you understand the complexity of, making something like that.
It's unlike any other knife. Well, I'm not going to say any other knife ever made, but it is unique. It's a carbon fiber blade with a little bit of steel at the bottom, basically, if that makes sense. You got to kind of see it. I was blown away. And he has his own YouTube channel where he shows and talks about how it's made and milled and all of that. So oh my gosh, he's actually milling and machining my lock bar right now while he's watching us. Oh boy. I guess it's going to be ready, sooner than I thought, not maybe months and months away. So better save my pennies to pay the rest.
Yes. I am also building a custom right now. I'm pretty excited. I got some Matrix glow-in-the-dark carbon fiber going on a South African. Oh, no, never mind. Take that back. He's in Norway now. Jason Guthrie is making me a Scout V2. And I'm going to use some Diamondback Damascus from Vegas Forge to do that. So that should be pretty cool. That should be a pretty wicked little knife. And I'm very excited. But, with the Scout, the one that I have is a frame lock. And it should be interesting what a liner lock should feel like on one of those. I'm kind of intrigued. That also should be pretty light, I think.
Okay. And then the Casual Cutter also talks about into collecting makers also.
Yep.
Started hard on Vox design production knives, then moved to his customs. Same with Giant Mouse stuff now. Shiros are pretty cool. I've had a few in. Alex has loaned me some other people have loaned me some. Very cool knives for sure. And I think a lot of people kind of collect a maker or a brand because you get one and you like it. So you want to check out another one, and then you like that, and then you get another one. I think that's pretty common. So yeah, Nav Sergeant, full of unobtainium and the pivot glides on unicorn parts. Yeah, that's pretty much what the VC Edge does. That's exactly how it works.
Oh, that was good. I like that. So that's very cool. Yeah. Yeah. I'm the same way. I collect makers more than just the knife itself. And then you just kind of build a relationship with these guys over time and just makes the pieces much more valuable. Not even money wise, it's just more sentimental, you know?
I agree. I think a lot of my collecting is relationship based.
Hmm.
So, I'll buy a knife from a maker, and if I had a good experience and I like the knife, then I'm talking to the maker more. And then now they're starting to just send me pictures of stuff they're working on. And we start to build a relationship because sometimes they're not just the grumpy guy, they're also a sales guy. So they know that, hey, this guy bought 2 knives already. He'll probably buy a third.
Yep.
And if he bought 3, he'll probably buy 4. So it, it behooves them to be nice and kind of start a relationship.
Yep.
So I think it matters to me. If you're kind of a jerk, then I may not collect your stuff. If you treat me like crap, I'm not going to spend my money with you.
Yeah,
But if
it's
you're,
just like the Hellraiser, right? And Red Horse Knives.
uh-huh.
Never had one before I met you. You know, you kind of got me into it, and then my interactions with Ed were actually quite fun too. So ended up, being a brand that now I have 2 of them, and I didn't even, I've been collecting for a long time, never bought one before. So like I'm like that too, and I can overlook certain things uh, with better uh, interaction with the knife maker or the company themselves as well. Like that's kind of plays a little bit more weight than the product, I guess. Although the product, of course, is like the main part of the focus, but I can easily dismiss product because there's so many different options out there. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed. And EDC for Fun asks if anybody's seen the 1911 pistol with grips made out of meteorite.
I have
No.
not, but I have seen meteorite pistol grips before.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. And then NAF Sergeant says he hopes that my VC Edge is a donut themed VC Edge.
Ugh.
I can't say. I'm not talking about what the material is. Alex knows, but we're not talking about that here now. You'll have to wait until it comes in with an unboxing. I can't say.
Sorry, guys. I heard something about donut theme, and I almost had a stroke.
I mean, I guess like that is a collection thing that I've done videos on, and we won't get into
Yeah,
the whole donut theme thing, but it is funny what we all collect.
I can dig it. I mean, like you know how I feel about that donut thing. I can dig it, but it's
It's absolutely
none of that
silly.
in there.
It's
None of that in
absolutely silly. It's actually kind of dumb, silly. It doesn't hurt anything, but it's kind of it's a weird phenomenon. It's like back when I was a kid, it was like the pet rock. Everybody bought the pet rock. That's probably before Alex's time. He's like, pet rock? What? Most of the people watching, they're like, pet
I know
rock,
what the
what?
pet rock is.
It went nuts. And the guy was in Los Gatos, actually, in Northern California here.
What about the chia pet, man?
Or the Chia Pet, similar thing, makes billions of dollars. The donut theme is kind of the same thing. Doesn't hurt anybody. It's kind of silly. It's kind of weird. And there's a whole bunch of hate. So when you hate on it, I almost want to collect it more. Just to kind of, stir the pot, if you will.
Yeah.
Cobra Light Steve, the donut thing is fun for an affordable knife. Wouldn't consider it for $1,000. I think that's a great point.
Like that Rotten Design Evo.
There was the Rotten Design Evo. I thought it was just a picture. Then there was a video on Facebook and stuff. Alex and I were talking about. Like, I've seen a Hinderer with a donut themed
scale.
I
saw that too.
It was for sale actually, and I hated that blade shape, so I didn't even consider it. But I think again, it goes back to my earlier statement of buy what you can afford and don't go broke buying stuff. I agree, $1,000 donut knife might be a little excessive, but if I had a knife and I could get a scale made for 100 something bucks and I could swap it in, maybe I would do that just for the pictures and for the talk, right? I know. I need some help. I need some professional help at times. I know.
Now, another thing that I wanted to bring up about knife collecting too is sometimes if, let's say, like, depending on whatever price range you are into buying yourself a nice cutting piece, in some respects, some people might even find it more advantageous or more fun to take a production knife and pimp it out. And just today, I spent $600 on Spyderco accessories.
So now I actually have been meaning to ask you. My buddy bought was it a Magna Cut? I think it's a Magna Cut PM2.
They make it Magna Cut?
Maybe I'm thinking a different steel. I don't remember now. But he was going to talk to you or get us together to talk about he wants to pimp it out. And you're the Spyderco pimp master. So we'll have to get you guys connected. He's a local dude to me, so
yeah, no problem, man.
I think it'll be fun. We can help spend his money on some cool stuff from wherever you buy most of your stuff from Russia. But I don't know if we can get that stuff right nowadays. But
yeah, no, the stuff I purchased today was actually all I found at DLT. So there's there's a custom, like, kind of, I want to say like a custom parts maker, but he makes knives once in a while too. It's Rips Garage. LLC. And they're pretty much known for Timascus clips and things like that. And we're getting to that EDC. So DLT just did a huge drop. They had these red, white, and blue splatter carbon fiber scales from Fat Carbon. They're called like Nebula for a pair of 3. So I quickly snagged those for my pair of 3. I'm going to take the Python scales off and put those red, white, and blue ones on there.
Okay.
I bought 3 Timascus clips because, I have one on the purple PM2. So I wanted a matching one for the gold PM2 in Timascus. And then I also bought a Timascus wire clip replacement for the blue Sleesh buoy I have. I wanted to put a clip on that.
So is the Timascus clips that you've got, that you ordered, are they the same as the one on the purple one or a little bit different? Because if I remember, the purple clip, wasn't that super pocket friendly?
It wasn't, but it looked awesome.
It looked great, and I loved that knife, other than the clip that didn't work so well.
Now, one of them it might work well on because I got flat scales for the pair of 3, and I got a clip for that one too.
Okay.
So I'm going to see if it's the contoured rounded scales that makes that the issue with the clip, or if it's the clip.
Could be. That actually could be. Now that you mentioned that, that could be the problem. I don't know. It'll be interesting to hear.
Yeah, we'll find out. So I got that. And so like I just decided, like to play around with my knives that I already have this time around and just buy stuff for those. Oh, I forgot. And I bought, the lanyard loop hole that's in the handle.
Yes.
They were selling colored tritium inserts for that. So I got a gold tritium insert for the M390 PM2, and then I got purple insert in tritium for the purple and black PM2.
So does that replace the tube altogether?
It fills it with like.
So it fills it, right? So you can't use a lanyard anymore, which you and I both don't use lanyards, so it's fine.
Nope.
So that's actually pretty cool. So you replace the lanyard tube with a tritium insert.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
So what is the rest of your plan for, say, 2022 in collecting? So you got a couple of customs working on, and you're going to pimp out some of your own stuff.
That's pretty much what I'm going to continue to do. I am gonna just pretty much concentrate on the customs that I have in the books, which is probably about 8 knives. And then, throughout the year, if I see a little production, something here and there, then I'll buy that. But for the most part, I'm not really looking for new book orders or anything like that. I'm more looking to finish stuff. Like I have a couple of them where I've been working on those things. Like some book orders are like 2 years old, and they're like finally coming up. So,
Right.
it's one of those things where I'm like, well, let's just do that. And it looks like this year there's going to be a lot of those kind of sprouting out if
Mm-hmm.
it goes as according to plan. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to the stuff that Jason from VC Edge is working on. I'm kind of counting that as one knife because it's the same knife. Sprinkles, please. Because I did a video that I was really going to work on just doing like 2 knives this year and maybe 2 watches. So I've bought 3 knives currently. If you count the Hellraiser that just came back. Although we did a trade deal for that, so I don't know if that really counts as buying a knife because we traded stuff.
It counts.
It does count. All right.
It counts, right? It's like money going in, money going out.
And what about if I'm buying 2 of the same knife, one standard version, one custom version? Is that 1 or is that 2?
That's 2. That's actually 2.5.
Why is that 2.5?
Because you're buying 2. So here
that
brings a good. That brings a good point. So.
What's up, Bobby Legs?
Hey, what's up, Bobby Legs?
My watch friend there. We're talking about watches a little bit. How I only want to buy 2 this year, and I've already bought 1, and that wasn't even on my list.
Yeah.
Okay, so why does 2 count as 2.5?
Because it's such a waste to get the same model twice. You could experience something else with a chunk of that money. Like why do people have 2 of the same thing?
Well, because one's custom and fancy, as you saw, and one's going to be standard carry around. I don't know. I'll count it as 2, maybe. I might do a video on that.
Yeah.
So what is this here? You should go by the IT rule. What is the IT rule?
Yeah, please enlighten me.
I'm not sure I know what that is, Steve.
Yeah.
All right. What about watches? Are you buying any watches this year?
I am going to buy some watches this year. I already bought one this year. I bought the limited edition bronze Hamilton khaki mechanical with the 80 power reserve. And then I bought one Casio. The one they call the Hulk, that stainless steel.
Oh yes,
that one. And I think I bought one more this year. Like I bought more watches than knives this year.
So CPM asks, what watches do I have in mind? Do you have in mind, meaning me, because I mentioned that. I already bought one that was not on my list. Was Random Rob is a YouTube guy that I've been watching and is actually a very good friend of mine, and we talk all the time, like Alex and I do. And he designed one with Borealis. So I bought one of those. There's only making 50, so I bought one. That was not on my list. What was on my list, there is a Rolex Yachtmaster, 2-tone with chocolate dial and Ever Rose Gold. And that would be number 1 that I'm working on. And number 2 would be the Omega Seamaster No Time to Die, James Bond, all titanium.
Oh, that's a sweet
titanium Seamaster. So those would be the 2 that I would buy this year. I think it's really going to just be the Yachtmaster, because I bought some knives and so just these are not cheap watches or knives, so it may just be the Yachtmaster in 2022. And I'm very good friends with my Omega dealer here in Napa. I bought 2 watches from him directly, and some earrings and just some stuff. So I bought a bunch of stuff from him. So he's going to be able to help me with a No Time to Die when it's time. Although those are becoming harder to get to because everybody's buying those. So those are the ones I'm shooting for. The Rolex, I mean, those are hard to get also. But I am talking to some ADs already. I have some friends in that world. When I'm closer to having the funds, I will ask for questions. I'll ask them to start looking for one for me. And no, CPM, I'm not looking at any Pateks right now. Although I did see one on Facebook today for sale, a Patek. I believe that was for $995,000 or trade. So when I shared that with some friends of mine, one of them says, I guess I could trade my house.
Right.
Okay. EDC for fun says the Hamilton looks dope, Alex.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Hamilton does some great watches. If anybody's into like Hamilton does great. I've owned a couple. Have since let them go, but like Hamilton does some great watches, and there's a lot of different price points.
Yep.
That's
yeah,
the beauty with
I think it's a good place to start too if you want to like start to get into more premium watches, and like I'm not in the Rolex or in the Omega, like that's not my world. I'm in the Seiko and the Casio and the
Here you go
side of it, right?
You can help Nav Sergeant out with a custom Casio Royale.
Yeah, I could do that.
I gotta be honest. That Damasteel cased Casio Royale is awesome looking.
Oh, thank you.
It's like that's worth the price of admission, I think. Like not to even go crazy, just get that case, swap the guts in, and put it back on the stock bracelet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of crazy, kind of silly, but yeah. And Detroit Spartan, a very good friend of mine too, that I've met over the last year in the watch world. Great place to start, I think, is with the Hamiltons he's talking about.
Yeah.
And he's a pretty good watch collector guy and has, some Rolex, some Omega, bunch of Seikos. Like he's kind of all over the board like I am with knives. Detroit Spartan is with watches.
Does he have a channel?
No, he does not. He's Instagram. I'll put a link to his Instagram down below when the video's done.
I saw Knife Sergeant was buying a couple watches here and there recently.
Dude, everybody likes your Damasteel Royale.
Yeah,
it's pretty sick. I haven't seen it in person, but it's pretty sick.
Yeah, it was a fun build. So now, speaking of that one, the next project I'm working on right now is building a custom SKX. So I'm ordering.
That's right. I've seen some pictures of that.
Yeah, so I got a Timascus dial for it already. I got a luminous date disc for it already. And then I'm still stuck on the case, man. I'm like, I either want to do a titanium SKX 007 case.
Yes.
But then I saw that this spot had the case that gives you the ability to swap out the internals to a Willard style case, which is pretty tempting because I like the Willard. And I found the matching blue luminescent needles, just like the Willard, for the Seiko. So it was kind of tempting to build like a custom Willard versus doing the SKX build, but kind of on the fence on both right now. It's either do the titanium lightweight case or build like a fancy Willard. I'm not sure. We'll see.
Well, we'll keep that for the next video. We'll talk about watches a little more because we're at over an hour now. So we're going to wrap it up and say thank you, everybody, for watching and listening and joining in. We will have a guest in 2 weeks, March 13th, I think it is. We're still nailing down the guest, but pretty sure there'll be a good one. And they're all going to be good. We're not going to invite guests that aren't going to be good. So I don't even need to say it'll be a good one. But some of the people in the chat here today are going to be guests in the future.
Yep.
So for sure. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining. We greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you on March 13th with a guest.